the palace's biggest and riskiest asset. A king has coffers of gold, a massive army, and unchecked power. But the real question is not what he can conquer, but what he can secure. And the single most important thing a king had to secure was his succession. In history, a king's greatest security was his long line of heirs, strong, healthy, and absolutely free of dispute. In ancient and medieval worlds, infant mortality was tragically high. If you relied on just one wife, you staked your entire dynasty's fate on a single woman's womb. That's a terrible investment strategy, isn't it? Any good strategist would know you have to spread your bets. Therefore, polygyny, the practice of having multiple wives, wasn't just a privilege, it was a life insurance policy for the state. It was a solid statistical safeguard for the dynasty's future. But this was never just a numbers game for heirs. Every extra wife was a treaty with a weaker or hostile rival, a trade agreement, or a new province the king could now influence through his queen. We might call this a moral dilemma today, but in ancient times it was a practical, political, and geopolitical necessity. Let's see how this tradition truly began and how it shaped our civilizations.
From biological necessity to social symbol. The primitive roots. Polygyny wasn't invented by a king. It was a product of biology and security that existed long before civilization. To understand it as a political institution, we must travel back thousands of years to a time when groups were small and life was brutal. Imagine you are a tribal chieftain 10,000 years ago in the hunter-gatherer era. Life is harsh. Infant mortality is over 50%. Your most crucial job is ensuring your tribe's genes make it to the next season and that you have enough men for the next skirmish. Here, it's not politics, but the necessity of biology at work. A male, in theory, can sire hundreds of children over his lifetime, but a female is physically limited to one at a time, and the reproductive window is constrained. Therefore, a male with resources and power, the tribe's strongest protector and provider, consolidates more women into his group. This was a form of natural selection, the safest haven for the strongest genes. As societies settled and farming began, this biological need morphed into a social symbol. The man with more wives and children had not only more laborers for the farm, but also more marriage currency to forge alliances against enemies. This was the first queen, a lifeline to secure an heir and a way to establish a social link with a powerful family. It wasn't a king's luxury. It was the guarantee of tomorrow's survival.
Part 2. Mesopotamia, the contract of marriage and power established by law. If you ever need proof that polygyny was a pragmatic, legal, and economic tool, we must look to the cradle of human civilization, Mesopotamia. Around 1754 BCE, the Babylonian king Hammurabi wrote his famous code, one of the most detailed legal documents of the ancient world. And yes, this code included extensive legal clauses for polygyny. In Mesopotamia, marriage was a contract, not love. And this contract explicitly revolved around power and heirs. The first wife, the primary queen, was always supreme. Her status, her dowry, and her children's succession were legally guaranteed. She was the chairwoman of the board of directors. But Hammurabi's code tells not just kings, but any property-owning male why he could take a second wife. Lack of an heir, the barren womb clause. If the first wife was infertile, the man was permitted to take a second wife to continue the lineage. Failure to produce an heir was not grounds for divorce, but it was legal justification for a secondary marriage. Illness or religious duty. In some cases, a second wife was permitted due to the first wife's illness, ensuring continuous domestic management. Do you see it? This was not about affection. It was a matter of contract and production. For kings, this rule applied 100-fold, but on a massive scale. Every additional wife was a treaty with a weaker but necessary neighboring state, a trade agreement, or a new province the king could now control through his wife. The harem was not a romantic getaway. It was the seal that finalized complex political deals backed by millennia of law.
Part 3. Egypt and India. Divine sanction and the purity of blood. Several civilizations not only accepted polygyny, but even viewed it as religiously imperative. Here, marriage became an order from heaven. In ancient Egypt, the pharaoh was considered a living god, often the earthly incarnation of the sun god Ra. To maintain his power and the fertility of the state, the pharaoh had to take multiple wives. This reproductive capacity was not just personal, it was a symbol of the state's power and prosperity. Ramesses II allegedly sired over 100 children. This was a grand declaration. Just as the sun god creates life, so too do I create an abundance of heirs for my kingdom. These queens often represented different regions of Egypt, or even foreign powers, solidifying unity. In ancient India, particularly among the Kshatriya dynasties, the number of queens was a direct measure of the king's honor and prestige. Texts like the Dharma Shastras outline a hierarchy of queens. A king was expected to maintain not only his chief consort, Patrani or Mahishi, but several others, each representing a different social or regional alliance. The biggest necessity was fulfilling dharma and repaying the pitri runa, i.e., ensuring the rights for ancestors by fathering sons. To die without a son was considered a religious catastrophe. Hence, polygyny was a sacred duty. This was a spiritual act. The harem brought the diversity and unity of the state under one roof.
It was a grand, divinely sanctioned way of declaring, "My kingdom is vast and strong."
Part 4. Harem Management, the cockpit of politics and a microcosm of power. Now let's get to the most fascinating part. If the harem was a symbol of power, its management was the king's most dangerous administrative burden. The harem was not a resting place. It was a highly competitive political arena. The king maintained a strict hierarchy, and every queen served a different function. The chief queen, Patrani, she was administratively the most powerful. Her son was considered the rightful heir to the throne. Her role was like the CEO of the king's domestic affairs, overseeing the lives and finances of the other queens. Political queens. These were brought in to seal peace treaties with neighboring states, often serving as spies or envoys for their homeland. Their sons would inevitably try to claim the throne, creating tension. Concubines and servants. These were often captives of war or women of lower social standing. Although their status was low, their children could still be considered legitimate and complicate the succession game if the king was unhappy with the chief queen's line. The harem was a place where, even in the king's absence, mothers engaged in rivalries, intrigues, and secret alliances to place their sons on the throne. For the king, keeping the harem peaceful was as challenging as winning a war. This is why eunuchs, Khwajasaras, were appointed. They were the palace's most trusted civil servants, tasked with internal security, communication, and controlling the tension between the queens. They were the king's eyes and ears, reporting on the power struggles within the harem, a microcosm of power, politics, and espionage.
Part 5. Mughals and Medieval Asia. The industrialization of the political asset. By the medieval and particularly the Mughal era, the harem had become an industrial part of the political system. Queens were literally high-value political assets, carefully acquired, bartered, or negotiated. This was pure economics of power, often termed matrimonial expansionism. Buying alliances, the peace treaty. A powerful king would buy peace by giving his daughter to another king. The dowry often included gold, elephants, and critical territory. Selling loyalty, the security policy. Smaller or defeated kings would give their daughters to a greater emperor to buy protection and prestige. This allowed the defeated king to keep his life and some measure of autonomous rule. The production of peace, the blood bond. Every birth strengthened the blood bond between two dynasties. When two houses were tied by blood, the probability of war was drastically reduced. It was a permanent biological treaty. This was a diplomatic win-win. A queen's value was determined by the power of her dynasty. Therefore, for the king, the more queens, the more trade relationships, and the greater the geographic reach of his empire. Every queen was, in a way, a peaceful, permanent extension of the royal army. Part 6. Literature, Art, and Cinema. The veil of myth and romantic fabrication.
To the outside world, the common people and the historians outside the palace walls, the harem has always been a place of mystery, sensuality, and lavish excess. Literature and art exaggerated this myth. Persian poetry depicted the queens as tender beauties and the king as the ultimate lover. In Indian miniature paintings, queens and concubines are seen leisurely sitting in beautiful gardens and palaces, waiting for the king. Stories like Arabian Nights turned the harem into a fictional escape, a place where only splendor and physical pleasure existed. But this artistic depiction often masked the harsh realities of life inside. Political isolation. Many of the queens, especially foreign ones, were cut off from their home state, living in a kind of political custody within the palace. Loneliness. Many of the king's 50 wives may have rarely seen his face. The constant power struggle. Queens had to constantly struggle against eunuchs and other rival mothers to get their sons designated as the heir. So, while art gave us romance, the reality was that the harem was a high-stakes corporate office where every queen was a CEO working to increase the value of her stock, her son. Conclusion. The game of power, eternal and modern. So, what have we learned from this historical deep dive? Kings didn't keep so many queens just because they could. Rather, it was driven by hard, inescapable political and statistical necessities. Heir insurance. It was the most reliable way to secure a dynasty. Political alliance. It was the cheapest and most effective peace treaty, far better than deploying an army. Status symbol. It was the grandest way to tell the world how powerful and resourced the king was. Today, we do not legally practice polygyny in most societies, but has that royal attitude disappeared? No. Today's kings, i.e. politicians, billionaires, global corporate leaders, no longer buy alliances through wives. They buy them through mergers and acquisitions, stock market deals, and political donations. They secure legacies through trust funds and offshore accounts, not through birth rates. The game of power is still the same, controlling resources and succession. Only the stage has changed. So friends, the next time you see a king with multiple queens in an old story, remember, he was more of a politician than a romantic lover. He wasn't playing romance, he was playing geopolitics. If you enjoyed this logic-based epic, and if you understood this complex political game, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and tell us in the comments what historical delusion you'd like us to satirize next. I'll see you next time. Until then, be happy, be wise, and sleep well historic. Good night, and long live your logic.